Today, we're going to tackle a really big and honestly a pretty provocative idea from the historian Alfred McCoy. He makes the case that the United States isn't just, facing a few challenges. No, he argues it's showing the classic signs of an empire in decline. It's a heavy topic for sure, so let's just jump right into his main claim.
Okay, let's just let that sink in for a second. This one sentence is really the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. McCoy is suggesting that if you look at the US through the lens of history, it's following a pattern that, well, a lot of great powers have followed before. This isn't some prediction of a sudden collapse tomorrow, but more of an analysis of a process he believes is already well underway.
So, you may be wondering, how does he spot this decline? What are the signs? Well, he points to two classic symptoms that have popped up in fading empires again and again throughout history, from ancient Rome to the Soviet Union. The first is something he calls micro-militarism. That's this tendency to get into smaller, often messy military fights abroad, almost to project an image of strength that might be fading. And the second, growing political instability and really sharp divisions back at home. McCoy's whole argument is that we're seeing both of these right now.
Now, McCoy doesn't just stop at identifying symptoms. He points to two major things, what he calls accelerants, that are basically hitting the gas pedal on this whole process. The first one, as you can see here, is what he calls a massive geopolitical mistake, a miscalculation in this new global competition that he calls the new Cold War.
This slide really lays out the stark contrast. During the first Cold War, the U.S. strategy was all about containment, right? It was about encircling the huge Eurasian landmass with these powerful military alliances, these rings of steel. It was a strategy of being everywhere. But now, in a new great power contest for that very same part of the world, McCoy says the U.S. is doing the exact opposite. It's pulling back.
And that leads to this. I mean, what an incredibly powerful quote. A unilateral surrender. Whoa. McCoy is not mincing words here at all. He sees this weakening of alliances and pulling out of key strategic spots not as some clever tactical move, but as basically giving up the playing field in the most important geopolitical arena on the planet. Okay, let's shift gears to the second big accelerant. And this one isn't about military moves, it's all about the race to control the economy and the energy that's going to define the rest of this century. This is so fascinating because it shows a clear pattern throughout history. According to McCoy, every single global power for the last 500 years has risen by mastering whatever the dominant energy source of their time was. For the British Empire, it was coal and steam. For the American century, it was oil, without a doubt. And for whoever comes next, McCoy says it's all going to be about green energy.
So who's winning this new energy race? Well, the source material points right at China. And this chart here, this is just one piece of the puzzle. Electric vehicles. China is already cranking out a whopping 70% of the entire world's supply. I mean, that's not just a lead, that's straight up market dominant. And then you see this number, and it all clicks into place. $9,000. That's the price tag for a brand new, high-tech, long-range electric car from China. That is just an unbelievably low price that Western companies just can't compete with. It's a huge challenge to what's been a cornerstone of the American economy for a century. And you gotta understand, this isn't just about one product or cheap cars. It's a whole industrial strategy. China is dominating solar panel manufacturing. They're using these incredible, fully robotic factories, and they're even building their own fleets of ships just to export all this stuff to the rest of the world. McCoy sees this as a very deliberate, strategic effort to become the undisputed global leader of the green energy revolution. So, if these big geopolitical and economic shifts are really happening, what does that actually look like on the ground? Well, McCoy points to some very specific and kind of troubling consequences, especially in America's own neighborhood. As its global reach shrinks, McCoy says the U.S. is starting to refocus its military power much closer to home. He calls it a return to gunboat diplomacy. That's a term from the 19th century. It basically means using your overwhelming military force to push smaller neighbors around and make sure you're still in charge of your corner of the world. But here's the paradox, right? The irony is that this aggressive short-term strategy will probably backfire in the long run. It can create a lot of resentment, and it might end up pushing those Latin American countries away from the U.S. and straight into the arms of other global partners, like China, who are already huge economic players in the region. And speaking of policies that backfire, McCoy points to this other bizarre cycle he calls the stimulus of prohibition, and he uses the war on drugs as the perfect example. For 50 years, the strategy has been to attack the supply. But It's basic economics, right? When you cut the supply of something, the price goes up. And when the price goes way up, it creates this huge financial incentive for the producers to make even more. The result? This cycle has led to a mind-boggling tenfold increase in the total drug supply over 5 decades. Okay, so let's pull all these different threads together. What's the main takeaway from McCoy's whole analysis of this changing world? When you boil it all down, McCoy's entire argument really stands on these two pillars. He's saying that the combination of a huge geopolitical mistake in Eurasia and a massive economic failure in the green energy race is creating this powerful 1-2 punch that's speeding up the decline of American global power. In the end, McCoy's analysis doesn't really give us a crystal ball, but it does leave us with this massive question. If he's right, and the global balance of power really is shifting under our feet, then what comes next? What will the next chapter of the global order actually look like? It's a question that really challenges all of us to think hard about the future of power, alliances, and, well, the world itself.